Welcome to the Flynn Brothers podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Jimmy. Today's big idea: movies that are better than the books.
We discuss the most famous adaptations of books into movies and discuss which films improve on their literary counterpart.
Later, we delve into what advantages movies have over books and what types of books are ripe for the cinematic treatment.
Finally, after reviewing classics like Fight Club, The Shining, and Goodfellas, we decide once and for all, is The Lord of the Rings better as a book or a movie?
It's all coming up. But first, here's the Solons.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
You know, buddy, there's that old adage you always hear as people are coming out of the movie theater. They say, that movie, it was all right, but it wasn't as good as the book. How many times have we heard that, throughout our lifetime?
Millions upon millions of times.
There's more times you've heard that than grains of sand on the whole planet. Of course, these days, folks don't really read books, nor do they go to the theater to watch movies. But still, it is an old adage that we have heard many a time. But we're flipping it on its head today. We are doing movies that are actually better than the books. But before we get to that, I want to talk about this old adage where people say movies are not as good as the book. Why do you think that is? What is the advantage you think people believe books have over movies?
Well, books are the first mover in your imagination, right? You read a book first and then comes the movie. So your idea of what the story is established by the book. In addition, obviously, you can go into much greater detail in a book than you can with a movie. And then in this way, people sort of imagine the story in their mind. And then if the movie, for whatever reason, doesn't live up to it, then it's very easy to just cast that film away. This director doesn't know what they're doing. This actor got the character all wrong, et cetera, et cetera.
Now let's pivot to movies that are better than the books. As we go through this episode, we're going to go back and forth. You and I each have some movies we believe are better than the books, and we'll go back and forth discussing them. But a few rules, few caveats before we get into things. We will only be discussing movies and books we've both seen and read. So, for instance, we won't discuss Jaws or The Princess Bride or Gone Girl because those are simply movies we've seen where we have not read the accompanying books. Similarly, I've read The Hobbit, but have not seen any of the Hobbit movies, so we wouldn't discuss something like that either.
I'll do some quick flash rulings here. I have seen The Hobbit and most of the Hobbit movies. Hobbit book better. Jaws movie just sort of has to be better because Jaws the book isn't one of the great books of all time.
Yeah.
The Princess Bride, I'm sure it's about a 50-50. Gone Girl, that would be one I would wonder because that's a bestseller right there.
Yeah, no, it's curious. And you know, the last name of that writer, Flynn, I think is her name Gillian or Gillian Flynn, right? Something like that. Pretty cool. Huh?
Flynn was the one that I was concerned about pronunciation-wise, you know.
Oh, sure.
Once you see a Flynn, sister.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it could have been the Flynn Siblings podcast, an alternate reality.
Had Gillian or Gillian joined us.
Yeah. Could have learned her name, I guess. Another caveat, we will not be doing comic books, so movies based on comic books, so no Batman, Superman, etc. Strictly novels, okay? So we also won't be doing nonfiction. These are all based on novels. And I already said the final rule. We're going to take turns. And with that, why don't we start with you? What's your first movie that you believe is better than the book?
Well, I think this one is the one that people point to most, and it's Fight Club. The book I read after watching the movie, which is also a way that people get into it, right? You watch the movie first. You're like, I wonder what the book is like. The author, Chuck Palahniuk, Palahniuk, excuse me.
We were just rehearsing that before we started recording. I thought you really had it when we, the red light went off.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Palahniuk.
he himself has said that he likes the movie better than the book.
Wouldn't that be awesome if you wrote a book and you're super proud of it, and then you're just watching this movie and you're like, this is awesome? Because it's like, it's your work, your ideas, but just someone else is doing it. I mean, it would be, in a way, very, very satisfying, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the meat of the story is there, but I remember it being like a little underwhelming in the writing, a little bit maybe kind of ham-fisted, maybe a little overworked in some parts, where the movie is so sleek and clean, and a lot of those monologues that Ed Norton delivers and Pitt delivers just really fly off the screen. And I think too, like, part of it is the actors in the movie. I think you probably get some of the best performances of their careers. Like, I think it's probably the best Ed Norton movie, like his performance wise. You could argue back and forth whether or not it's Pitt. It's definitely one of his most iconic performances.
Pitt is better in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I personally,
Sure.
I would say that personally, but he's great in it. The body, I mean, you know, you can't argue with the body in it. He's ripped to shreds, you know.
You can't argue with it at all. And then Helena Bonham Carter, it's the dirtiest and most desirable she's ever been in a film. She's one of those actors that, you know, the more grimy they get, I feel like the more appeal that they have.
How do you feel the film is aged? It's very kind of Y2K era, Gen X-y, electric guitar, the kind of slick editing. How do you feel like it's aged? Is it kind of work as a time capsule? Do you find it's timeless? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's kind of one of those things, though, that suffered the way that Heath Ledger's Dark Knight Joker suffered, in that a bunch of odd, off-putting men have glommed onto
Incels.
This thing. Yeah.
Incels is the word you're looking for. They love these. They love Fight Club. They like Boondock Saints. They like the Joker. Yeah.
And then it's almost become this thing where it's like, it's one of those like online tropes where it's like, oh, I was dating this guy and he said Fight Club is his favorite movie. I was on a first date and he said he likes Fight Club, and it's like gross. There couldn't be anything more disgusting.
But to be fair, you're saying it's a good movie. There's a difference between thinking a movie is good versus it is your favorite movie. This would be an odd favorite movie.
Yes, it'd be going too far. But I think it's really good. I think it really kind of captured a spirit that is in the modern American, kind of as the 90s wave of prosperity was waning, and, you know, some of the American dream, everybody's like, I'm not so sure this is actually going to work out the way it is. The ending also, which is, I think, one of the most, you know, incredible climactic finishes to a movie, particularly from that era. It is not that way in the book at all.
Oh, okay.
There is not
Different
like
ending.
the giant coordinated bomb sequence, you know, and certainly set to Where Is My Mind by the Pixies, which just, I think it's such a cool like moment. And the twist, though, is in the book. So it's kind of, I think, one of the most perfect types of books to adapt into a movie where, you know, it's a good idea, but maybe the execution isn't perfect on the page. And then you put it into the hands of somebody who really does understand story and does understand sort of the visual side of things. And they just take it to that next level. And that's what I think happened with this one.
That is a fabulous segue into the first movie I would like to bring up. It is The Shining. The book was written by Stephen King. The film was by Stanley Kubrick. This point you're making where the best movie adaptations from books center around books that are solid good, but then the movie elevates them and takes them into these completely different directions. I think it is such a great blueprint. I think we've seen movies struggle to adapt books that are seen as masterpieces. We've never had a great Gatsby adaptation that was wonderful, right? We've struggled with Hemingway. We talked about when we did the Blood Meridian book club that again, that's like an unfilmable book. But The Shining is a really interesting one because I've read the Stephen King novel. I saw the movie first and then read the Stephen King novel probably like middle school, high school, and it's solid good. The beginning actually goes a little bit more in depth of like Jack's backstory, what it was like as I think he used to work as a teacher, and then, you know, there's kind of his issues with alcoholism and stuff. But frankly, a lot of it was rooted in Stephen King had his own issues with like drugs and alcohol. So there's a lot of this like rider, kind of plundering the depths of his soul, his booze-soaked soul now that he's kind of on the other side of the torment. And the book is kind of in that wheelhouse a lot. Whereas the Stanley Kubrick version of The Shining goes in a completely different direction. I know Stephen King has criticized The Shining mostly because the character of Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson, in the novel, he's supposed to gradually lose his mind and gradually go crazy. Whereas when Kubrick casts Jack Nicholson and you got him in the first scene of the movie looking through his eyebrows with his sharp teeth looking crazy, you know there's no suspense. This guy's going to lose his mind very, very soon. He's pretty much crazy at the beginning, right? And so I think that was Stephen King's main kind of gripe with the film. But the movie is not about a booze-soaked writer. It's not about writer's block. It's really, and there's a great documentary film called Room 237 that breaks down all the different interpretations of The Shining. The film is really about kind of imperialism and colonialism, and there's a lot of sort of white man versus Native American motifs. There's a lot of sort of Nazi Germany motifs. Some people, have even read into the film as like Kubrick making some winks at the fact that he helped fake and stage the moon landing for television. And so the film is just so different in its goals than the novel was in its goals. And it's such a great meat and potatoes story. It's cabin fever. It's limited cast. Guy loses his mind, trapped in a big hotel and starts going after his family, right? This notion of you have this white man conquering figure. They dress the Shelley Duvall character in a lot of like moccasins and Native American clothing. So again, the imagery play is so beautiful. And again, though, like Kubrick owes a lot to the novel because the maze sequence, the notion of the Overlook Hotel. Like there's so much great meat and potatoes stuff from the novel that he just completely elevates. And his visual style, Kubrick's visual style, is just better than Stephen King's prose. It's not a one-to-one, right? It's two artists doing what they do. But what you go to with The Shining is the visual style and the atmosphere and just these unforgettable sequences. And it's also just really, really funny. Yeah. The Stephen King novel is not especially funny. King occasionally is good with humor, but the Stanley Kubrick Shining, I think intentionally, we watch it and we're laughing a lot. Like there are moments where it's genuinely chilling and genuinely terrifying, but there's also just balls to the wall, crazy moments, Jack Nicholson line deliveries that are insane. And it is just, it works on so many levels as a film.
Yeah, I think part of what also makes a movie superior to a book is when you have multiple people's visions coming together in a way that becomes a greater than the sum of its parts.
Right.
Like Kubrick is an all-time, obviously, great director. Jack Nicholson, all-time great actor, and lots of great character actors along the way. Beautiful scenery, just everything comes together so harmoniously, as opposed to just it's one Stephen King book. It's just all him.
Yes,
whereas this collaboration, I think, when everybody is one of the best at what they do, can really take things to the next level. But yeah, you said it just right. That the whole thing, it's a sandbox sort of that Kubrick plays with. And I think part of the reason why it's so hard to adapt like masterpiece novels is because you want to keep the prose. You want to keep the way that it's written, because part of the joy of a great book is the turns of phrase and the way that the author uses the language. And, in a movie, mostly what you get is dialogue, which is so, it shouldn't actually be written perfectly the way that a novel is. It sounds false if it does.
Last thing, the other advantage the film has and any film has over books is the score and the music. And again, in the case of The Shining, it's one of my favorite scores ever. The little like like little spidery noises, and then even the opening bum 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 bum. Like there's just like even things like that are making me laugh thinking about it. Like it just is such a fun ride, and feels like a full meal too. The movie's almost like 2.5 hours. I think it just, whenever you watch it, I think you're hit emotionally in all the right places. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's sensational.
Totally. It's a masterpiece of cinema. cinema, and the book is not a masterpiece of literature.
But you got another Kubrick one on here, don't you?
That's right. I think this was a Kubrick standard, right? He sort of sought
Yes.
out these books to adapt. So the other one that I have read is Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. It is written in this nearly indecipherable Russian Cockney slang
Right.
known as nadsat. It was invented by Burgess. If you open this book, and go ahead, I go for it, you will not understand the first chapter. Like, most of it you will just like completely miss.
Gibberish.
It's
or-
not gibberish.
yeah.
It's just there's words for like doing violent acts that he invents like basically a whole language. Like, it's a lot of English, and then some word you have no idea what it means, and you have to use your context clues to figure it out. So in that way, once you kind of get the hang of the book, it is kind of rewarding. Like, you've kind of summited this hill, and then you're coasting downhill a little bit more. The reason why he did it is because Clockwork Orange is a very vicious, violent, depraved story that people, I think, blanch at if they were to read these words of the acts that these guys were doing just in regular old the Queen's English. You know, they wouldn't exactly love seeing that. It's just so off-putting. So he invented this sort of slang to allow him to talk about these unpleasant things in a way that maybe gives a level of remove for the reader that allows you to engage with it. Another interesting thing about this book is that Burgess, his wife, had been falsely diagnosed with cancer. And so he was on this like mad dash to finish this book and many other books to make money to provide for her and her treatments.
Wow.
And it turns out she actually didn't have cancer.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
we get this book out of it that, maybe would not have been written or written as fast as a result of it. So that's just kind of a...
That's fascinating.
yeah.
I had no idea. That is really, really fascinating.
Yeah. So the gist of the plot is more or less the same. That's these hooligans going around committing ultra violence. And Kubrick uses, I think, a little bit of this slang, just a taste, but not to the point where it's completely distracting, kind of the way that it is in the book.
There's voiceover in the film. I remember using a little bit of the slang. This is a typical thing we'll see in movie adaptations too, right? Where they preserve the prose by putting it in the voiceover.
Yeah, and that I think can kind of have mixed results, but in this one it works well. But again, just like with The Shining, it's a pretty straightforward novel about what it's about. There isn't like a bunch of extra layers of subtext, and that's really where Kubrick, I think, is, of all the directors, probably the master of symbolism and subtext and telling secondary stories or making observations about culture or history in a way where you almost don't even catch it maybe the first time. But in this one he does, and especially with a close eye. But all of that stuff sort of informs the choices that he makes. And so there's lots of themes of like domination and fascism and propaganda and, the way that people use violence and who is allowed to use violence and all of these things that imbue this tale with many, many more meanings. And then he also, puts it in this very strange, bizarre world where all of this sort of stuff could take place. Which I think is pretty fascinating. And just makes it more beautiful. I mean, it's, with Kubrick, I think, especially him, I think the reason why a lot of his adaptations work so well is because he's just so talented as a filmmaker. Like, you're never watching a Kubrick movie and you're like, I don't really know about the camera placement in this scene, or I'm not sure he covered all this the quite right way.
The general gist of the plot is these hooligans are committing ultra violence, and then what's the Malcolm McDowell, is that the main actor's name? He's like arrested, and they do the prior eye open therapy to him to try and kind of rehabilitate him. And then I've only seen the movie once or twice. What happens after that?
Then he like escapes and is used as a piece of propaganda tool by some corrupt politician who holds him up and basically is going to give him the life.
Because it's a show you can be rehabilitated.
It kind of, or it's just like, actually you won't won't be rehabilitated. They'll just take your story. You'll just be used by the state in whatever way the state wants to use you. And so he's basically not really all that punished for what he's done wrong, and that he gets basically rewarded at the end of the story. Like he's going to have this, you know, it ends with this sort of like joyous, debauched fantasy of him, you know, having women and all sorts of manner of drink and pleasures.
This is
like
not
that.
exactly a date night flick.
No.
Rather disturbing film. I have not, compared to other Kubrick movies I enjoy rewatching, this is one I don't find myself eager to rewatch very often.
No, it's pretty gruesome. And then the other thing that's interesting again about the book is that because it's so like violent and depraved and unapologetic, the publisher actually made Burgess add a chapter to the end of the story where the character's like, oh yeah, that was a wild time in me life, but I'm all through with that now. I'm a good bloke. I'm back on the old straight and narrow. And it totally reads as false. And then of course, obviously Kubrick doesn't, you know, use this at all in the. So that's the other thing too, I think, about books is that, you know, there's a part where, you know, authors can sometimes get on tangents or they think that something's really critical to a book when it maybe actually isn't that necessary to the story. And so you could just do away with that stuff and kind of condense things as they need be.
Interesting.
There you go.
2 more quick ones, then we'll head to break. My next one, movie that is better than the book, No Country for Old Men. The novel was written by Cormac McCarthy. The film was by the Coen brothers. The book originally was written by Cormac McCarthy as a screenplay. He had written a couple screenplays in his time. I believe The Counselor was a film based on one of his screenplays. And nobody wanted to make the movie, so he changed it to a novel and published it as a novel. And then the Coen brothers famously adapted it into a screenplay and famously said the way they did it is one of them held open the novel and the other one typed it basically word for word into a screenplay. Obviously, they had more success with it as a script and made a brilliant film that won Best Picture among many other Oscars.
Yeah, when you're reading it, you're just like, goodness gracious, these are all the lines.
It's almost all dialogue. That's what I remembered when I've read it twice now. It is almost just like complete dialogue. The brilliance of the film is the dialogue is very sparse. When they do have dialogue, it is very sharply written. It's very muscular. The brilliance, though, of the film to me is, I think it's a 2-hour movie and only 16 minutes of the movie has a score.
Wow.
When you think of the movie, no theme comes into your head, right? You're going to talk about Jurassic Park in a sec. You don't think of na 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 na. Like, no music comes to mind when you think of No Country for Old Men because there virtually is no music. It's a lot of silence. It's a lot of breathing. It's a lot of footsteps. It's a lot of racking and, you know, guns and gunshots and stuff like that. And so there's some like kind of atmospheric stuff, but really just for guys who were such great writers and had such literary scripts and great monologues and really talkative characters, this was such a unique film in their filmography, particularly at the time, because it was so sparsely written and it was their best film as a directing duo. And just their use of silence, their use of imagery, their pacing, it was just so brilliant. And so the novel is good. It's solid good. I imagine the McCarthy screenplay was super close to whatever they ended up writing, but it is just a really great film. I love There Will Be Blood, which came out the same year. It's hard for me to pick between the two. There, you know, I would say There Will Be Blood has the better central performance with Daniel Day-Lewis, but you could argue No Country for Old Men is just a more complete movie. And yeah, man, every time I return to it, I just think it's so brilliant. I think too, you know, you talked about with books how your imagination can do a lot of the filling in the blanks and stuff like that. But sometimes a movie is so good that the performances of the characters are so much better than anything your imagination could have ever done. Like, your imagination can kind of get the Tommy Lee Jones character. It can maybe get the Josh Brolin character, but it cannot do Javier Bardem's Anton Chigurh. And so you were just totally transported by these titanic performances and just this one-of-a-kind vision. And this was them. Like, you know, I maybe enjoy some of their earlier movies more. I maybe like Fargo, Lebowski, Hudsucker Proxy a little film more, just kind of more my style. But this one, man, I mean, it is just such a masterful film. And yeah, again, all credit to McCarthy's novel that used to be a screenplay that became a screenplay.
Yeah. Oh, it's just such a rock solid movie. And I think, too, the novel, although it is great and it's super readable, like you can just fly through it.
Yeah.
Blood Meridian, this is not. Like, he does
Correct.
not really labor over the words in the same way. Like,
No.
you can feel these sort of quick style of, let me just give you enough scenery, enough characterization, okay, and we're off, that you get sort of in a screenplay.
Parts of it are a little messy. Parts of it are a little underwritten. Like a lot of novels, it's kind of good and taut that first 3/4, and the last quarter it devolves a bit. But yeah, lot sparser compared to some of his other works.
Yeah, so it doesn't quite have the same like beautiful prose that you love from some of his other stuff. Okay, the last one. This is an easy one. Jurassic Park. This is written by Michael Crichton, who was a Harvard-educated doctor who took up writing novels in his spare time, and just happened to pen a lot of absolute beauties. He is a true science fiction writer.
Hard science
Fiction. Has great ideas, and this one probably is the best of all of them. And his style, though, is not of a like MFA style. He is just a very like clinical workman-like writer. And the one like thing that sticks in my head most after all these years after reading it is, all the time these helicopters are going down in Jurassic Park. They're, the T-Rexes are batting them out of the sky or whatever. They're getting tangled up in phone lines. And they always say the helicopter spun crazily.
That's a line that
that he uses multiple times, I believe. Crazily is something that describes the way something moves. And I was thinking, it's like, I do sympathize that it is difficult to describe what happens to a helicopter when it is falling out of the sky. And it does, for sure, spin crazily. But you'd just rather see a helicopter fall out of the sky, like the visual of it, just in the same way that you'd rather see a T-Rex rather than read about a T-Rex. As good as he writes about them, as well as he sort of puts it all together. So, yeah, I mean, it's in the hands of Spielberg.
Yes.
Awesome cast. And just it's a masterfully translated story into the visual medium. I think it just really it's where it belongs.
It's incredible how well the special effects hold up too. We got all these new slick Jurassic Park movies with again great special effects, but yeah, you just find yourself returning to that first one. It's just such a better film.
I think too it's the practical, the amount of practical effects that are in it. And I'm not breaking any news here, but like when you just know everything is rendered on a screen, you just I think being so used to CGI, we're no longer fooled by it.
No, you look like you could just reach into the screen and put your hand through the T-Rex or through the Spinosaurus,
I can
right?
feel the T-Rex's pebbled skin.
Yes.
Like you can feel the breath, the sharpness of the teeth, like just that realness that is there. And it's such a shame how much of that has fallen away. And whenever it does actually happen in a movie, it seems like a rarity, but I think people really celebrate it. And it's what makes it timeless. I think a lot of the CGI that we see these days is not actually going to age that well.
You apply that to books, you'd rather hold the book than be breezing through it on a Kindle. On those special effects, though, we don't like those special effect books. That's what you're telling me.
That's not what I'm telling you. I'm a Kindle man through and through. To me, it's the words are words. Whether they're on a screen or a page, it doesn't matter to me as much.
Words are words. I got a few words for you. We'll be right back.
Next up, Dune.
Who wrote Dune? I forget.
Frank Herbert wrote Dune. I have read the first 3 Dune books, and I believe part of the 4th and 5th. I'll just say this. It starts getting pretty weird. It starts getting a little strange. Unadaptable is what the Dune books were originally called. However, I think Dennis fill me in on the last name.
Villeneuve.
You're right. I got to do the pretentious French accent. Denis Villeneuve.
Denis, that's right.
Denis
Denis
Villeneuve.
Oh, Christ.
There we go. Okay. Anyway, he does a very good job, I think, with these first two. And I think actually the third one, based on the plot of the third one, is going to be exceptional. Essentially what happens is Paul Atreides, when we've left him at the end of the second Dune, he's become like the emperor, and then what happens is he just wages total war on the universe.
Wow. Like General Sherman.
Yeah, just slays and galaxies of bloodshed. And so it's going to be extremely epic.
I liked the first couple of Dune movies. I thought they were great, albeit slightly boring movies.
Yes,
they're great.
Right.
Like they're great, well acted, brilliantly shot, but left me a little cold emotionally. I don't know that I got swept up in them like I would a Star Wars movie, but they are very capable, good films.
I think it will perhaps rely on what happens in this third one. I think the third one might stick the landing, and then in retrospect, everything will feel maybe even a little bit heavier, a little bit more weighty. And I think that'll be a very good thing.
I saw Chalamet with the shaved head. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Give it up for Timmy Chalamet shaving his locks like Samson. I mean, that was like the main feat, other than his like concave jawline,
his clavicular.
The hair was what he really had going for him, and he gave it away for art. So
good for him.
Hats off. I'm sure. I mean, it would be brutal if it was a bad movie. It's like I shaved my head. I cut all my power for this, but no, I think it's going to be great. And I think the part of what makes Dune so great as a movie, it's pretty split hairs. It's still kind of up in the air as to whether I'd prefer the movie or the book, just because the third movie hasn't come out yet. But I did really enjoy the book, and I have very much enjoyed the movies. And I think part of the reason with the movies is just the absurd cast. Like, it is nuts how many people have been in it. As a brief refresher, I'm just going to run through the names here.
Okay.
Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Jason Momoa, Oscar Isaac, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, Christopher Walken, Anya Taylor-Joy, Leah Seydoux, and not to mention Robert Pattinson coming in the third one. I mean, that is just like a cross-section of the hottest people working in the industry today.
The craziest ones to me are the Chalamet, Zendaya, Florence Pugh, Robert Pattinson, Anya Taylor. It's like, if you are between 30 and 35 and then like A+++++ lister, you are in this movie.
Yeah.
The other thing, I got to commend you. You went back to back Oscar Isaac, Austin Butler. I mean, there was almost like a little like there was almost like a flow to that somewhat,
Maybe the Flynn Brothers freestyle podcast will be coming up here. But yeah, it's also like a great movie for like tan older men. I mean, you got Oscar Isaac, you got Momoa, you got Brolin, you got Bautista, Bardem. If you're not
tan older men,
that's really who really shines in this
That's
film.
all we can aspire to be as we age, right?
Yeah, tan. The other thing that's great about Dune, the book, and to me it goes a little bit far, but part of it is its appeal. It's just like there is a like Tolkien level of world building in these books, and I think that's so great for movie adaptations because it guides the choices that you make, and it's a treat for people who have read the books, and it makes there feel like there's a deeper vision for people who haven't necessarily read the book. So even though maybe things aren't explicitly explained, every single part of the Frank Herbert Duneverse, you can feel it in the set design, in the costuming, in the way that the characters carry themselves, all of these different things. And if I may, I'm going to call the ending of Dune 3 right now.
Well, is it based on the book?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I'm not even, it doesn't really
what do you mean,
spoil
call
anything.
it. Frank Herbert wrote it 40 years ago.
Well, I'm calling Villeneuve. That's the only way you can end it.
Okay, go ahead.
Chalamet is going to walk into the desert and he will be consumed by it, and that's the end of the movie.
That's how the book ends.
No, it's not necessarily how the book ends. They do a little bit of tidying up, but that's basically how the third book ends. Yeah.
What do you mean the desert those sandstorms kind of kill him and consume him?
Yeah,
basically?
he's basically outcast after for his dominance over, and he's walking out in
hubris,
the desert.
I guess.
Yeah, so
they say pride goeth before the fall,
Right.
Or in this case, before the sandstorm, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm assuming, too, that Dune 3 will not be a 90-minute movie. So once you see Chalamet gearing up to walk into the desert, you can start gathering up your popcorn.
This will also continue the Dune tradition of just ending in a very bizarre, like, how do I feel emotionally about where this ended? Like, the first one is like, all right, I just beat up a dude. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
And then it just ends, and you're like, all right, that's kind of a movie ending. And then the second one, it's like, I'm now king, and we're going to prepare for war. And then it's like, okay, like, again, kind of ending before the thing.
Yeah.
And then this one, you're just saying he just disappears into the sandy mists.
I will say I think it's going to be more satisfying, the third one.
I
think
hope
the
so.
third one
Jeez.
will really
I'd
stick
love
the
to get
landing.
a bow put on one of these at some point. I'm kind of just at the end like, oh, it ended. It just kind of seems like it's just like an oven timer going off. It does. The cookies are done. Like it just, I don't know.
It's like the worms, they're long. It's a long thing.
They're long, all right.
You're watching it go by and you're like, boy, there's still more, huh?
Yeah,
All right.
something like that.
Yeah.
I gotta ride this thing, huh? All right, next movie that is better than the book, I'm gonna go with The Godfather. The novel was written by Mario Puzo, I believe it's pronounced. Godfather 1 and 2 are both based on the book The Godfather. Godfather, the book, I believe, ends kind of where part 2 ends, where Michael is fully taken over. He's killed Fredo, spoiler alert, and a bunch of other people. And then the family kind of, it's sort of their journey to settling in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of taking the old world mafia from New York into kind of Las Vegas, which kind of followed the pattern of many mafia organizations during that era. Book is great. I kind of weirdly like The Shining. I read it in like middle school, early high school, kind of as I'm like starting to get into movies, and it's like, oh, some movies are based on books. I'll read the books, right? You're in school reading books. You're like, I have this skill, I can apply it, right? So yeah, I remember the book being very good. Really, one of the only passages I really remember being like very in depth versus the movie is there's a scene, I believe, at the wedding in the first one where Sonny is like cheating on his wife and having some affair, and it's very brief in the movie, but in the book I remember it going on very long and being very explicit. Of course, I was a middle school or early high school boy, so those types of passages are worth their weight in gold during that part of your life.
You were taking notes. You were
Yes. That's what that's for, huh? Let me ask you this though about the Godfather movies. A lot of people say, what do you like better, part 1 or part 2? I am kind of the opinion that it's sort of like Kill Bill. There's no point in choosing between the two. They kind of just act as one, much like the book does. Do you feel similarly, or do you feel like, oh, I like part 1 versus part 2, or what do you feel like?
No, I think you're totally right. They're one contiguous thing, even though it's basically 3 different stories woven together. I mean, yeah, I think what really brings it over the top is obviously a Francis Ford Coppola directing.
Yes,
Brando, Pacino, and De Niro.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like Coppola is the auteur, right? The French word for author that describes someone who's got complete ownership over a film. He writes, he directs, he produces, etc. He is just better at his job than Mario Puzo is at his, right? As we kind of said before with Stanley Kubrick directing versus Stephen King writing. And that's really just how I feel about it. I mean, again, it's a great novel, capably written. It was massively popular when it first came out. Like, it was a hot piece of property. And, so much has been read or written and said about sort of the making of the Godfather film. You could, watch Miles Teller bring it to life on that one TV show, The Offer, I believe it was called. But yeah, no, I mean, it's I'm not breaking any news here. Godfather 1 and 2 are great movies, and I do think if you're interested in the films, the novel is worth reading. I would have been curious to have read it before I watched the movies, but again, I would have needed to have been alive in the mid-'60s, so sadly, I wasn't able to do that.
Right.
But yeah, no, again, really solid novel. I didn't include this one, but it kind of reminds me of Silence of the Lambs. That's another one where I've read the novel. I prefer the movie. Again, the performances, kind of the atmosphere, the directing by Jonathan Demme, like. But again, it's just a super capably written, really great book. And so, it's like any of these. It's like all these books are good, right? None of these are like shit books. Like
No.
you're not going to
No.
adapt a shit book. That's never happened, I don't think. Unless you make a shit movie, in case we're not talking about it on this podcast. But yeah, no, Godfather. Prefer the movie to the book. Not exactly groundbreaking.
No. Yeah, this podcast isn't called Books and Movies That Were Both Terrible.
That'd be a good episode.
Yeah.
But then we're just yucking yums,
Yeah.
right? We're yucking yums,
not-
and we don't want to do that.
We're not yum yuckers.
No. No.
The one that I chose is, and this one's a razor's edge difference here.
Close one.
It's The Big Sleep. The Big Sleep, which is a brilliant novel, the probably definitive noir novel written by Raymond Chandler.
Yes.
He is a master of the metaphor, and there is a lot of just great prose in it. If you don't mind, I'd like to sample a few selections.
Did you? I'm glad you jotted some down. Maybe you'll even let me take a crack at one of these, huh?
All right.
Maybe. Go ahead.
Let me do the
Chandler's
first one
prose.
here.
Go for it.
This is the beginning of it. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning, mid-October, with the sun not shining and a look of hard, wet rain in the clearness of the foothills. I was wearing my powder blue suit with dark blue shirt, tie and display handkerchief, black brogues, black wool socks with dark little clocks on them. I was neat, clean shaved, and sober, and I didn't care who knew it. I was everything the well-dressed private detective ought to be. I was calling on $4 million.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
It's so good,
Yeah.
dude. So good. Pure style. Super, like you said, muscular, clear, short sentences, no flowery language. Just this is pulp fiction at its best. I mean, this guy is just the king of like junk food writing. It's like a Michelin star approach to fast food.
Right.
It just is. His writing style is so satisfying and just very cinematic too. It just feels very voiceover-y, very cinematic.
You can see it happening. It's such a clear voice. Yeah, I'll do one more. Then I'll let you have the climactic sort of reflection he offers here. He's talking about a dame. You know, in these film noirs, there's always a
Right.
dame, the femme fatale. She lowered her lashes until they almost cuddled her cheeks and slowly raised them again like a theater curtain. I was to get to know that trick. That was supposed to make me roll over on my back with all four paws in the air.
It's so funny, dude.
There's a ton of really hilarious parts. There's like a real respect for women, and also there's these like, she's a manipulative trickster type of person
Right.
as well. That's always sort of a theme of these noirs. But it's hilarious the way he describes these people.
These noirs so many of them were made in the 40s and 50s, and they've continually kind of tried to reinvent the genre with neo-noirs, and there's some great examples of it. We talked about No Country for Old Men, Chinatown, a famous one. There's kind of every few years one will come around, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, they brought it back, because it's one of the most satisfying both literary and film genres. And, the great thing about Chandler, too, is he sets a lot of his stuff in L.A., and in his version of L.A., it's always raining. Yeah. The city's a sewer, and it's just like, it is just such this like unique version of the city. He just is such a pleasure to read.
Yeah, particularly at that time where Los Angeles was sold as just sunshine and oranges and
Yes.
movie stars. Yeah. Go ahead. Why don't you take the very end? This is where the title of the book comes from.
And perhaps one of the greatest endings to a book we've ever read.
No doubt.
What did it matter where you lay once you were dead? In a dirty sump or in a marble tower on the top of a high hill? You were dead. You were sleeping the big sleep. You were not bothered by things like that. Oil and water were the same as wind and air to you. You just slept the big sleep, not caring about the nastiness of how you died or where you fell. Me, I was part of the nastiness now. That's so awesome, dude.
That's sweet.
It's so awesome. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
It really just shows the range, too, of him as a writer to talk about these sort of three different things, setting up a great story, describing someone in a hilarious way, and then just giving a very poignant, reflection upon the nature of existence. It's really a tough to beat book. However, I will say the book, as I read it back, there is this you can feel sometimes the effort. Sometimes these metaphors just roll off the page and they're unreal, but other times you can kind of feel them laboring a little bit. The plot too is also just like extremely tortured and very difficult to follow, and sort of purposefully so. You're not even necessarily really supposed to follow all of the threads that he's leaving for you here. Oftentimes it's like, I gotta go follow up on this person. What? They're dead? Okay, well now let me go find the person who killed them. What? That person's dead too now. It's just like,
who originally hired me again? They're dead. Yeah.
So it's just all of these different like things where you're like, okay, now I figure out where we're going. Oh, we're not going that way. And so that, I think, is a good one. The other thing too about this too is all these years later, there's been so many hacky retreads of the noir style. I mean, Chandler just makes it look so cool and so muscular. You would want to write like this. If you were a man, you would want to write this way. So it's what I think of it as just the style that birthed a million hacks. I mean, it's really,
the song "Yesterday" by the Beatles is one of the greatest songs of all time. It's also the most covered, and every cover you hear of it is the most cloying, disgusting, nauseating version possible. And it's just like anytime someone does something good and makes it look effortless, a million hacks are going to try it. Steph Curry takes 30-foot three-pointers, makes it look effortless. Now every kid who wants to play basketball is heaving three-pointers in third grade, and it's just like, this is not how you should be playing basketball, right?
Agreed. And the other reason why I believe the movie, and particularly I'm talking about the Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall movie, is this is superior because it stars those two who have, all-time, once in a million years screen chemistry. I mean, it just leaps off the screen, those two, when they're together. There's a scene where they're lighting cigarettes for each other, and they're talking about each other using the metaphor of horse racing. And so there's lots of like, you ride hard, you finish strong, you ease back. It is just nakedly sexual. And they're just conducting themselves so great. They know exactly where the camera is. They know how to hold themselves. They know how to say each line just right. And it's going back and forth, and it's just razor sharp repartee. And some of that is in the book, but also this book was partially adapted by William Faulkner. And it's directed by Howard Hawks, one of the great, early film directors of sort of the modern, the studio era. And it just, again, it's one of those things where Raymond Chandler is really brilliant on his own, but Raymond Chandler amplified by Bogart, Bacall, Hawks, Faulkner. I mean, it just takes it to a whole other level.
Yeah, the end of the Big Sleep novel is great, as we read, and the end of the movie is as good, if not a hair more like spine-tinglingly brilliant, right? Like just totally sensational. The sweeping score. Yeah, if you get a chance to see the Big Sleep movie, it's great. Both are great though. Like you said, it's razor thin. Both are fantastic in very similar ways, and both really stand on their own.
Yeah, the other thing that they do in this is to make the plot kind of hang together a little bit more. They bring Bacall's character into scenes where she is not in the book, and this beefs up her character and adds a love story that doesn't really exist in the book, and makes it much better.
Next movie that is better than the book, Goodfellas. Perhaps our favorite film of all time. Would you say that, buddy? I think we determined it as our favorite movie of all time.
Yes, I do. At the risk of off-putting some woman on the internet on a first date. Yes, Goodfellas is my favorite movie.
At least it's not Fight Club.
Right.
The book was written by Nicholas Pileggi. It was based on a gangster, Henry Hill, who turned state's witness, was in the mafia for many years, and turned state's witness and ratted them all out, and gave all these interviews to Nicholas Pileggi, who wrote them all down and made this great novel, Goodfellas, very similar to the movie in lots of ways. The voiceover in Goodfellas is perhaps one of the greatest uses of voiceover in any movie ever. Again, has inspired a million hacks. No one has been able to do it as well as Scorsese and Ray Liotta.
Even Scorsese doesn't do it as well in Casino. Right?
Gets kind of close in The Irishman, but again, no one does it as well as Goodfellas. The interesting thing about the novel and then the film. So a lot of the voiceover lines are taken whole cloth from the book, and it's great. And it's a lot of Henry Hill's perspective, which the movie is as well. But it also takes his wife's perspective at different times, and then we'll kind of have third-person perspective at times. Nicholas Pileggi co-wrote the screenplay with Martin Scorsese. So they worked really closely together to get it from the novel to script to screen. Another thing Scorsese did is because De Niro and Pesci and a lot of these guys who were affiliated with the movie lived the life and were tangential to these guys, they had these extended improv sessions where Scorsese and Pileggi would write down what they said and kind of turn it into scenes that they added to the movie. So the very famous Joe Pesci scene, I'm a clown, I amuse you. That was something that like Pesci had witnessed firsthand. And so there's just a lot of these elements that are not in the book that get added into the movie. So you have the greatness of the book, plus these incredible improvisation sessions, plus which, again, the book just cannot have how Martin Scorsese moves the camera and all the great music that is in Goodfellas. Again, it is one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. It's a lot of like doo-wop, 50s, 60s. You start moving in kind of that 70s, Rolling Stones type music. And it is just, for our money, an absolutely perfect film. Most people would say their favorite gangster film is The Godfather. I would rather watch Goodfellas 10 times out of 10. I mean, both masterpieces, but Goodfellas is just such an incredible film. I think Nicholas Pileggi also wrote Casino, but again, Casino just doesn't really hold a candle to Goodfellas. Goodfellas is going to be the best of anything compared to anything else in my book. So it's a little unfair. But yeah, I just think those improv sessions that they kind of turned into the script and then into the movie, I think really aided the novel and just created the masterpiece that Goodfellas is.
Yeah, I think the voiceover, in addition to being extremely well written, is really well acted as well. Oftentimes, the voiceover can sometimes feel like a piece separate, or you can hear the guy turning the pages.
You felt that with Casino, right? It was
Casino,
kind of lazier, the voiceover.
Yeah, whereas I think Ray Liotta does an unreal job kind of capturing the Henry Hill character, and it's seamless. Like, you really feel like you're going in and out of this guy's mind when you're doing the voiceover, and you can't really top it. Okay. Speaking of a just absolute hog, this is kind of the bookend here. Maybe not a speaking of, I guess. I'm not sure what kind of a segue that was.
I don't know what hog
as in an absolute gigantic book.
There we go. Well, The Goodfellas isn't that long of a book.
No.
This was just not the best segue in the world, is it?
On a completely different note.
There you go. There you go.
We have War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy.
Wow.
I have read this absolute huge book.
Now, this you can call a hog.
This
we can call a... How long is War and Peace?
This
like 1,000 pages?
Something like that. I read it on the Kindle. I can't recommend enough. If you have a really long book, read it on the Kindle. Instead of having to lug around something that weighs 20 pounds, it just fits right in the palm of your hand.
Hey. Very cool.
It's basically about the war between Russia and France, where Napoleon marches on and eventually takes Moscow. But then on his way back, he tries to leave in the winter and he freezes to death on the way there. So Napoleon never really loses a battle. He defeats himself, essentially, through his own pride
like
and greed.
Walter White-esque.
Yeah, something like that. There's also a storyline that kind of goes along with it. It's about noble people seeking, purpose in their life and love and stuff like that in Russia at this time, and all very interesting. I mean, just a beautiful meditation on life and reality. And this is a companion with this massive 4-part, 7-hour Soviet adaptation that is jaw-dropping. You have to have a good amount of time to devote to this, but I can't recommend it highly enough. I mean, it is the full might of the Soviet Union, the amount of on-location stuff, of giant war scenes, of animals, live animals being in scenes. There's a scene where there is guys getting drunk and there is a bear with them
Oh my
in a small apartment. There are scene upon scene upon scene where you're just like, I have never seen anything like this. This would never fly today. Like, this is dangerous. This is like absurdly costly. Essentially, what the Soviet Union was doing, similar to the space race, was they wanted to prove they could make as good a movie as the Americans. And now, I don't think they did it on a consistent basis, but this movie is as good as anything that was put out in this era. I mean, it is absolutely stunning.
It's like 60s it came out, or 70s,
yeah,
like
kind
that?
of in that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in color. It's in really beautiful, like, restored film. I think it's on HBO Max.
Okay. It's probably like Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
would imagine.
yeah. It's like Janus films. You know, whenever you see that Janus at the beginning, you know you're in for a good time. You know, hats off to that. Now, is it better than War and Peace? I will say it's the only movie where I think one of the big advantages of a book is that you feel this like, I did something. Where typically after watching a movie, maybe there's 10% of a guilty feeling, like maybe you had a little too much chocolate cake. Like, even though there is sort of the emotional catharsis and everything, you weren't working hard. You were sitting on your lard ass watching a movie. Whereas War and Peace, you really feel a sense of accomplishment reaching the end of it. But I just think that this adaptation is as close as you can get to really faithfully adapting something this titanic, and it's fantastic. So
I remember, and I've never read the book. You showed me part one. We were watching it pretty late at night. I went out cold.
Yeah.
But I do remember before, my eyes shut, that it was great. It was spellbinding. It's a visual feast. If this is your thing, I totally recommend it. I don't know if I'm in my life ever going to get around to reading and/or watching it. I think I speak for many viewers. It's many hours. You're talking about days worth of time, aren't you?
Listen, I'm not saying that it's easy, but I am saying that it is as gripping as a 4-part, 7-hour foreign film can be. So
You're just, even if you just convince one listener,
that's
it'll have been worth it, right?
My job is done.
That's pretty cool. You wanted to chat about kind of some of these kind of kids' books, like things based on kids' books as well, right? Yeah.
I think for the most part, most people find it a little bit unsatisfying, say the Harry Potter, the Hunger Games, the Twilight movie franchises that did make gobs and gobs of money.
Oh, yeah.
But I think most people find them 10% unsatisfying. I mean, I think that the books, that sort of young adult adventure, sort of magical realm type thing works better on the page. I think sometimes it's a little bit hard to translate the young adult sensibility to a film and make it feel proper and grown up and everything that a film should be.
I think it's an interesting time in your life when you read those YA novels, when you're in kind of middle elementary school, middle school, high school, where usually I kind of remember the kids who really got into YA novels, they really enjoyed that kid thing of, I'm just holing up in my room for 5 hours.
Yeah,
I whatever, you're going through puberty, you're having arguments with siblings, there's something going on at home, and you're just like, I just want to go into my little world, go to Hogwarts, and just escape. And I think it is hard when you have a kid doing that and living in that world and living in their head, which is a good thing to do. I mean, there are certainly worse things kids that age can be doing, right? I think it is such a potent thing where you're so emotional at that age and you have such conviction and you have such ideas for what it can be, that then when you go see it on the big screen, you're like, they betrayed it, or they deviated from the novel. They're not supposed to. This novel's my Bible, right? They're not supposed to deviate from it. And so I think Hunger Games, Twilight, those are a little more hit or miss. I think most people are pretty satisfied with the Harry Potters. I think they're pretty faithful. I think they go hand in hand pretty well. I've only read the first couple of Harry Potter books. You read all of them, didn't you?
Yeah, I think they're really just what's really gripping about it. And, certainly she's had her, run of fouls and put her foot in her mouth more than enough times. But J.K. Rowling really just has a great command of this world.
Yes,
and
yes.
it's just
the details.
So readable. I crushed it in one summer when I was a senior in high school.
All
this
of
summer.
them?
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah. I had
9 books?
I had a job where there was a lot of time just sitting, and I could just fly.
You're a voracious
Yes.
reader. Not all our listeners are voracious readers. They're probably more Jim-like in their consumption of literature.
I'll say you could if you have a couple of hours to devote per day during a summer when you're not doing much, you can get through them, no doubt. That's they're big. They're big font. The first one's small. They get sort of more adult as Harry gets more adult. It's good.
Is it come time to discuss Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Is it
Yes,
a better
is.
book or is it a better movie? I'm gonna let you start.
I will start by saying that I think it is about as good of an adaptation as a film has ever been. I mean, The Lord of the Rings is such a stunning achievement of literature and world building, and just on a line by line basis, jaw dropping. Like Tolkien just knocks it out of the park, spawns an entire new genre with this book.
Yeah. Again, folks, not groundbreaking.
Not groundbreaking. I'm not breaking any news. But I do think as good as the movie is, as well cast as it is, as masterfully directed, as perfectly paced, and on and on and on.
Timeless.
Timeless.
Yeah.
It'll if you were to show a movie about what's so great, what the pinnacle of movie making can be, you're hard pressed to top the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I do think the book, though, is superior because the point of that story is to go on a journey. And as you are reading that book, and by the time you get to the end of that massive book, you are like, wow, that is spectacular. I went on a journey.
Yeah, that's true. It's over 1,000 pages, the book, right? The book is incredible. You had read it and told me to read it for many, many years, and I was hesitant. I'm not a big fantasy guy. It's really one of the few fantasy books I've read. But I just dare anyone, give it 10 pages. Like, truly, give it 10 pages. If you don't like it, whatever. You don't like it. But it is just brilliantly written. And I know it's scary and it seems dense if you haven't read it. But it does fly, and you have to keep with it. You cannot set it aside for 6 months and then pick it back up. Like, you need to stick with it. Everything you love about the movie is just as good or better in the book. And my favorite thing about the movies is the Gollum character and the Gollum performance, and he's incredible. But there's even more of him in the book. Like, it's just like you get even more of them, and it's like... Again, seeing the movie kind of feeds, when you go back and read the book, it feeds it, right? You're hearing Andy Serkis's, I'm not going to, you want to do a precious, again, you're hearing that as you're reading the book, right? So it's like, in a way, you kind of owe the movie, you got to give it some credit for your enjoyment of the book. But yeah, man, I mean, it's one of the greatest books I've ever read.
I will say the one thing that the movie, I think, does really brilliantly is each of the 3 books of The Lord of the Rings are split into 2 parts.
Yes.
Where you are following Frodo and Sam.
Yes.
And then the rest of the Fellowship is in the other book.
Yes.
And the movie masterfully intercuts these.
I agree.
Whereas
that
it does not happen in the book. However, I do think it works well in the book. I think it would be really hard to keep track of all of the threads that the book has going at once. So, you sort of get these things a little bit more piecemeal maybe. But, it is spectacular.
I got one more for you that can end it. You ready?
Yeah.
Is Passion of the Christ a better movie than the canonical Gospels? What do you think?
Oh, my God.
What's better, the Gospels, the Word of God as transcribed by man, or Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ?
Now, you and I, we watched The Passion of the Christ not long ago
Yeah, probably
after
within the last year.
after
Yeah.
never seeing it before. There are two brilliant things Mel Gibson does. Actually, there's one main thing. It's that he does it in Aramaic.
Yes,
That he
yes.
doesn't try to put it into English, and I think that is really what
It's a good choice, yeah.
what makes it work.
We like the movie.
Yeah.
It's heinously violent. It
Yeah.
is incredibly disturbing. There's the scourging or whatever that
Yes.
scene is where Jesus is being whipped. That's 10 minutes of just sheer brutality. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We enjoyed it. We went to Catholic school, so we like it.
Yeah.
But Mel Gibson not exactly going to win a Nobel Peace Prize for his behavior as an individual. But
No.
as a director, we love Apocalypto, Braveheart. We like all these movies.
He's a man who makes a brutal picture.
He makes a brutal, a lot of violence and a lot of killing,
And I do think that is one thing that is lost in the Gospels
Yes.
is the utter brutality
Yes,
of the
yes,
Roman
yes.
Empire, and that is well communicated by Mel Gibson.
Let's not duck the question, counselor. Is it better than the Word of God?
For the sake of my eternal soul, I'll say that the Bible tops Passion of the Christ.
I think I'll agree with
There
you
you
on
go.
that one. Although, Mel Gibson, pay him an indulgence, maybe he can get you into heaven. Who knows? He's making the Resurrection of the Christ. He's making a two-parter. It's coming out, I think, next year. Lionsgate, big old budget. We'll see.
It ought to be something. I'll probably be there. Caviezel, is that it?
No,
Kaz-
Caviezel. The recast Caviezel.
recast
No
him.
Caviezel.
I'll say that. That's a good Jesus.
He's a good Jesus.
Good Jesus.
Yeah. Again, not a fella who I think is going to win any Nobel Peace Prizes in his personal life. But
And certainly not better than the original.
yeah,
but,
right. We like the original Jesus. We just want to be clear on that. And with that, please subscribe, comment, and leave a rating. Send questions, comments, or big idea suggestions to our business email, flynnbrospod@gmail.com. Thank you to our producer, Will Slade. I like the movie version of Will Slade a little better than the book.
I'm
I
kind of a
think.
book guy.
Are you
I
a
like-
book
I
guy?
like the
That's
book.
interesting. And we'll see you next time on the Flynn Brothers Podcast. Take care, buddy.
No, buddy. You take care.